Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be doing something that I don't think has ever been done before on any YouTube channel, and we're going to talk about the Beatmap Nominator um, evaluation process. So every Beatmap Nominator in the game is evaluated by the NAT, the Nomination Assessment Team, and the Nomination Assessments Team has the sole duty, basically, of evaluating the members of the BN and making sure that they are doing their job. So, what is the BN's job? Well, let's take a look. We have a fantastic wiki article right here. The roles and responsibilities. They are for modding pending beatmaps and moving them into the ranking cycle, into the qualified section. Beatmap Nominator, so that people are available for advice and requests about anything mapping and modding related. And they also veto beatmaps if they believe it has issues. And BNs, of course, are also quality and ranking criteria sort of police, if you will, right? So they go into the qualified section and find issues with qualified beatmaps. Now, that's sort of like an everyone duty. But the NAT have all of that in addition to regular moderator duties and also evaluations. So we evaluate the BN, the members of the BNG, to ensure that they are doing their duties properly, that they're meeting the required activity requirements, and other things. So there is a list of all the BNs, and it's not been updated for a while. Let's take a look at the rules. So they have to nominate 6 beatmaps over a 90-day period. It's about 2 beatmaps a month. They get an activity warning, and if they go below it, and if they go below 4 nominations, you get removed. There's a bunch of rules about what they can do. Right? So they can't nominate beatmaps with unrankable issues, and so on and so forth. But a lot of these things cannot be automatically checked, right? So that's the role of the NAT is we go in and we check realistically as many as we can, but there's a limit to how many we can check. But we check the maps, the nominations of these BNs, and every single BN goes through this process, typically every 3 months. Now, for a BN who's received a warning or who is in probation, they would get an evaluation every month. So it would happen, if you get, say, a warning for modding quality, your next evaluation will be 1 month later. Or if you're a probationary BN and you get it, you just got in, your evaluation will be in 1 month, and you either did great and you get kicked, or sorry, that would be awful. You either did great and you become a full BN, which is by far the most common thing that happens, and very, very rarely we decide that you're not meeting the standard that, as you can see, the standard here, and you get kicked. And there is sort of a third option that we don't really use anymore, but we used to. In certain circumstances, we might extend somebody's probation 1 additional month, if usually in the case that they didn't have enough nominations for us to feel confident in promoting them. A big thing that we look for is that we just need to have enough nominations that we can feel that you're doing your job properly over several maps. And so if you only nominated 1 or 2 maps during your probation, that's just not enough content for us to evaluate. And we would ask to see, closer to 4 maps for us to really feel confident in your abilities. Okay, so that's sort of like the basic gist of really what the NAT are looking for. So we can head on over to the BN site, so bn.mapperskill.com, and this is all public access, right? Everyone can see the whole list of the current Beatmap Nominators. A really helpful tool is, of course, the BN application part. You can see a list of all of the BN and NAT, including previous ones, including banned ones, and see all their history. Like, for example, _GT, you can see he joined in 2023 and has been a BN for 2 years straight. So great on him. And of course, you can sort it by mode, that game mode that you're interested in. A common one that people will use is request a BN. So if you go to request a BN, it will show you all of the open BNs, all the ones that are currently accepting requests. And there are some BNs that don't have their status listed on the website. And there are some BNs that will say that they are closed on the website even if they are open, and you have to check their user page. But 95% of BNs keep this up to date so that you can be informed as to when their requests are open, and of course their status and their requests, what they're looking for, what they don't like, that kind of thing, how you make those requests, that sort of stuff. Okay, so but that's not really what we're here for, right? This is just a basic rundown of the BN site. But really what we're looking at is what is the NAT looking for when they're doing evaluations. So looking at the user card, we can see important details. So such as when the next evaluation is, and when this happens, we get a card that appears. The things that we're looking for immediately as NAT is how is the user's activity. So in this case, in October I had 1 map, November I had 4, December and January I had 0. So in the last 90 days, which is what it defaults to, I had 5 unique nominations. So as we noticed from here, this is not a kick, but this would be a warning, right? I didn't have the 6. Fortunately, the NAT are not subject to the same activity requirements, so I don't get kicked, so we're good. But if I was a BN, I would be looking to nominate 1 more map before my evaluation came around. So that's great. We also see nominations that are popped, or I skipped one. So those are the unique nominations, and you can see in this case I have these 5 within the last 90 days. The nomination is disqualified. I have none right now. But these would be if you had a nomination and it entered the qualified stage, and then an issue was found and it was disqualified. And this website will automatically track and log all those instances where that happened. So as NAT, if we see somebody with 10 nominations and 5 of them were disqualified, we're asking questions. We're like, what the hell is going on? Whereas in contrast, if we see somebody with 40 nominations and 2 disqualifications, we're like, wow, this guy's doing great. He has a great track record. The other aspect to it that we see is what's called severity. So it looks like GT has no nominations disqualified. Let's find somebody. Disqualifications are really no big deal. It happens to everyone. Oh, I guess this one probably will show up. So as you can see, this is a little bit different of a tab, but this is what a disqualification would show up like. And you can see that there's a score. And this score is assigned manually by a member of the NAT based on how severe that issue is. Is that issue obvious? And is it actually affecting the gameplay, right? So the more severe of a gameplay impact or the more obvious that issue is, affect how severe that disqualification is. And if you have, 5 really low, like for example, and it goes up, so like a 2-2 would be a really bad disqualification, whereas a 0-0 doesn't even actually show up. We don't even show it. You have to go out of your way to have it revealed. So if it was like 5 disqualifications, but they were all 1/0, so a very low, like very hard to identify. So in this case, can be found with experience. That's what that first one means. And the 0 would be it has no effect on the gameplay. This is usually something like a capitalization issue on metadata. If that happens, and there's 5 of them, that's probably not a big deal, right? We can exercise our judgment. If it's a recurring issue, then we raise some questions there. However, if you have 2 disqualifications and they're both super severe, like unsnaps, the map is just actually unplayable, then that BN is going to be in some hot water, right? So we evaluate sort of the severity of those disqualifications. And if it's really easy to miss that issue and it's not very severe, it really doesn't matter to us as evaluators. Unless it's a recurring issue, it happens all the time, then it's a problem. Then going on, we have popped nominations. Nominations popped is when you place a nomination as the first BN, and there's 1 nomination out of 2. The map has been what's called bubbled. So it has 1 nomination out of 2. And if somebody goes and posts an issue on a map with 1 nomination, that nomination gets removed. And that is a nomination popped. Disqualification is done by user. This one's pretty straightforward. So in this case, I posted a veto mediation, and this one had was relatively severe, noticeably detrimental to gameplay, but it took some experience to notice. So 1/2 was assigned to it. So that's a disqualification done by user. And then a pop done by user is just the nomination popped, but I did it, versus in the case we saw before, Mo had done that nomination pop. When you're looking at NAT members, you're going to also see the list of evaluations that they have participated in. So you're going to see the applications, the number of applications they've done, and the number that they've been assigned to. And the current BN applications, so the applications are people trying to join the BN, and the current BN evaluations are current BNs. They're going through their usually 3-month evaluation cycle. And so in this case, I've done 26 out of the 31 that I've been assigned to. This is always, if you look at any BN or NAT, this will assigned number is always going to be higher, because even if that thing goes 1 day overdue, it automatically will assign another NAT randomly, and every evaluation is assigned to 3 random NAT. And if that goes overdue, you get assigned to it, and then this number goes up. But say I just got assigned to it and the original person did the evaluation, well, then my number goes up and this doesn't go up, so my ratio gets worse, even though I really didn't have a chance to actually handle the evaluation. So don't look at this and say, oh, this person's a terrible NAT, they're not doing their job. There's many factors for this. And then there's archives. You won't see this stuff. And then every user on the NAT side, so basically everything from like archives down, you don't see. And we also see, we also can add notes. So in this case, I could add myself a note saying something about this user that I want to take into consideration for the next evaluation that comes around. So if, for example, that user, we found after our evaluation that the user had an issue on one of the nominations, say, for example, we look at some really active BN who is nominating, like, say, this guy's nominating 19 maps. Holy crap. 3 of the NAT are not going to get through 19 maps. That's just not going to happen. So there's going to be some of these maps that we don't get the chance to evaluate. And if we later find out that there was an issue on one of them after we've given the consensus for their evaluation, well, we can go back and we can place a note on their evaluation so we consider it for the next one. Or if we find something and it's, say, the website doesn't automatically track it or something else goes on, we can just leave a note for us to consider in the future. Sometimes that's for like behavioral concerns. and it could be other things too. So that's really the user card aspect of this, right? And so, sort of from a holistic perspective, you can get a pretty decent idea as if this BN is doing a good job just from this. However, we always go and look at the actual nominations, right? So we would go in and you click on, depending on how many they have, anywhere from 2 to 3 of these maps per evaluator. And there's 3 for each card, for each evaluation. So you're looking at anywhere from 6 to 9, maybe even sometimes more maps per evaluation cycle. And it's not perfect because, some BNs can get 40 plus nominations in 90 days, and those guys pop off. We just don't have the manpower to possibly do a full mod on those, because every time that you're doing one of these evaluations and you're going through these maps, you're effectively fully modding it yourself. The only difference is that you're not posting on it. You're just going through and seeing if there's any issues. Now, contrary to popular belief, one of the things that we do not do is we do not evaluate that user's nomination quality. So if we don't believe the map that they've nominated is of high quality, that's not part of the evaluation process. We don't care. What we care about is unrankable issues. Quality, not quality issues, but there might be other concerns that we have. For example, the suitability of a jump. Maybe the jump we feel is too big, and we might make a note of it, right? Some BNs are allowed to mark whether they would like subjective feedback, which does not show up here, but on their card it would show if that user is open to receiving subjective feedback. And if they are, we might put in things that we would have said. If we were modding this map, what would we have said that we'd have liked to see the BN say? And that's a good way for us to give that BN feedback so that they can improve their work in the future. However, BNs are more than welcome to opt out of that, and there's no hard feelings. It doesn't affect their evaluation, and at that point, we would only leave it to actual issues that we find, unrankable issues, things that break the ranking criteria or violate guidelines. Of course, if we don't really find anything of significance, very rarely do we encounter a BN who has no note, right? We will usually find in those 6 to 9 maps 1 or 2 things that, hey, we missed this, but it's not a big deal. And we let it pass. We make a note of it for the BN. Hey, just keep an eye out for this in the future. And we move on with our day. That BN gets a good evaluation outcome. They continue being a BN, and their next cycle is 3 months from now. Now, other outcomes that could happen in these evaluations is that they could receive a modding quality warning. So if we find many issues that were missed, or they have a high disqualification ratio or things like that, then we may leave a modding quality warning and place the BN on sort of a pseudo probationary period. Hey, you're not doing a good job. You need to be careful, right? And that warning lasts for 12 months. And in that 12-month window, if they have another modding quality warning, then it usually results in a kick. We almost never will issue a kick for somebody who was a full BN without giving them a warning first. So it's always going to be a warning first. The only exception is for behavioral issues. So that's the other aspect of what we look for is, are the BNs upholding the responsibilities and the expectations for being a BN? And unfortunately, sometimes, and recently we've had some issues with this, is that BNs are, if we look at expectations for BNs, these are considered hard and fast rules. So if we find that they're exploiting or abusing the gameplay systems, or they are not being civil inside and outside the game's direct platforms, such as saying racist things, or they are inciting, being antagonistic and trying to create unnecessary drama and things like that, then we may issue either a behavior warning, or in extreme cases, we may just kick them. We almost always try to err on the side of giving a warning and giving somebody a chance to improve, but in some cases there just is not, and we need to kick, right? And if somebody's going on a racist tirade publicly, then we just cannot have that as a part of the BNG, and they get kicked, so that they can then reflect on their actions. So yeah, that's basically what an evaluation process looks like for every BN. Again, every BN will go through an evaluation every 3 months. We look each of the NAT that are assigned. There's 3 of them that are assigned. We look at 2 to 3 maps of theirs that they've nominated during that 90-day window. And we make a note and we evaluate the severity of those issues, if we find any. And we provide that BN some feedback if they are open to it. Again, I want to be very clear that we do not evaluate the quality of the nomination. We may disagree that this map is, we may think that the map is terrible and that they shouldn't have nominated it, but that is, again, not part of the criteria that we look for. We do not look at the genres that they're nominating. One thing that we do look for is that they are promoting variety. So one of the things that we don't allow is one BN to nominate only from 1 or 2 or 3 users. They have to promote from many users and not be just like a method of circle jerking their friends' maps into the qualified section. So that's not something that's allowed. And we take that job very seriously, right? We treat it like we are actual moderators of the game, which we are. So, yeah, hopefully this gives you some insight, and it's a very misunderstood thing, I would say. So, yeah, some unique insight that you will never have seen before. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks. Bye.